Hi everybody, I'm Miss Katie, and today we're going to work on our language arts assignment. We're going with the book Holes. This is written by Louisa Char, and I have a copy of the book here on the board, and then each of you guys have a copy in our small group. As we get started, I want to go over our objectives. You're going to read along with me and pick 10 new words on the piece of paper beside you. I want you to please write out those new words, and we'll discuss those later on in our group discussion. Second of all, I want you to be able to read. So if I come to you and I ask you to read along with me, you and I will read together. We're going to read together as a group, but also I want you to be able to read fluently, and I want you to be able to make sense of what you're reading. The best part about our discussion today is that Holes is a super cool book, and I think you're going to really get into it. But let's make sure that we are identifying characters. So the most important part of our lesson today is to be able to identify the characters. In chapter 1, you're going to see that we are immediately introduced to the setting of our story. So you should already know some of those story details, and you'll be able to point those out later on. But I want you to, as we're reading along, kind of make some mental notes, or you can even write them down, of the characters. And I want you to be able to tell me how that character is going to influence the story. And then our last and final activity with our reading today is going to be that you are going to predict how that character will affect this story. So let's get started. There's no lake at Camp Green Lake. Please make sure you're on page 1. There once was a very large lake here, the largest lake in Texas. That was over 100 years ago. Now it is just a dry, flat wasteland. And for video purposes, I'm going to go ahead and skip along into, if you get bitten by a yellow spotted lizard, you might as well go into the shade of the oak tree. And for video purposes, you'll notice that there are no characters in this page, but you guys have to know that someone is talking. So that's our narrator. So we're going to find out who is talking. The reader is probably, page 2, asking why would anyone go to Camp Green Lake? Most campers weren't given a choice. Camp Green Lake is a camp for bad boys. If you take one bad boy and make him dig a hole every day in the hot sun, it will turn into a good boy. Well, that's what some people thought. Read along with me. Stanley Yelnats was given a choice. The judge said, you may go to jail or you may go to Camp Green Lake. Stanley was from a poor family and he had never been to camp. Let's skip ahead for video purposes. Let's find some other characters. Stanley and his parents had tried to pretend that he was just going away for camp. Skip down. Stanley weighed 3 times as much as the other boys. Mrs. Bell wrote the ratio on the board, 3 to 1. Hey, we've seen that. If you guys need one-on-one help, I'll write 1, and then the colon, and then to 1. So that's a ratio. So just kind of look at that. Unaware of how much embarrassed she had caused both of them, Stanley was arrested later that day. She looked at the guard, is that a character, who sat slumped in his seat and wondered if he had fallen asleep. The guard was wearing sunglasses, so Stanley couldn't see his eyes. Stanley was not a bad kid. He was innocent of the crime for which he was convicted. He had just been at the wrong place in the wrong time. Be thinking about that, because we're going to talk about that. It was all because of the no-good, dirty, rotten, pig-stealing great-great-grandfather. He smiled. It was a family joke. Whenever anything went wrong, they always blamed Stanley. No good, rotten, dirty, rotten, pig-stealing great-great-grandfather. Supposedly, he had a great-grandfather who had stolen a pig from a one-legged gypsy, and she put a curse on him and all of his descendants. Stanley and his parents did not believe in the curse, of course, but whenever anything went wrong, it felt like a good time to blame someone. Things went wrong a lot. And then just for editing purpose video, we're gonna skip on, because hopefully what we would do is read, let's go to, Stanley's great-grandfather had made a fortune in the stock market. He couldn't have been too lucky. At such times, she neglected to mention the bad luck that befell the first Stanley Yelnats. He lost his entire fortune when he was moving from New York to California. The stagecoach was robbed by the outlaw Kissing Kate Barlow. If it weren't for that, Stanley's family would now be living in a mansion on a beach in California. Instead, they were crammed in a tiny apartment that smelled of burning rubber and foot odor. If only. The apartment smelled the way it did because Stanley's father was trying to invent a new way to recycle old sneakers. And just so that we don't make our video too terribly long, we're gonna read to the page 12, and if the warden likes what you found, you'll get the rest of the day off. What we're supposed to be looking for? Stanley asked him. You're not looking for anything. You're digging to build character. It's just if you find anything, the warden would like to know about it. So already we've learned of some important characters in the book. We've learned about Stanley, the warden. So I want you guys to take a few minutes to write down the characters that we've talked about, that you've read over, and I'll give you a second to do that. And we're going to stop on page 12. And I'm actually trying to make sure I make note of the chapter we're in. So 5, 6, 7, 8, 11. All right. So the next part of our lesson is we are going to have an open discussion. So I want you guys to make sure that we raise our hands and we don't talk out of turn. Give everybody a time to name some of their characters. Maybe pick some words that you've wrote down. And then also let's discuss the words, the characters, and then let's make some predictions on what's going to happen to these characters. So now that we've discussed and we've gone through our words, if you will take a few minutes to read ahead, have some time to read, you're going to look, and you can go for about 5 minutes just reading. You can either read back over some of the information that we've already read, or you can read ahead, either way. If you have gotten all of your 10 words, new words wrote out, and then also your characters wrote out, that's fabulous. If you want to look up some of those words, you can go ahead and do so. Also, you may go ahead and continue looking for characters, so and then write those down. If you want to do that, that'll be great. If not, let's just start with the 5 minutes of reading, and then we'll go into the next part. So I'll give you 5 minutes Okay, great. 5 minutes are up, and now we're going to talk about some characters. So obviously one of the characters you guys have pointed out to me is Stanley. Stanley is who? The main character. Yep, that's right. So we have Stanley as the main character. We have Stanley's parents. They're the characters, but we don't know their names, but they are characters in the book. They kind of help set up the setting of what's going on at the beginning of our chapter. The judge, that's right, that's who's going to make Stanley's sentence. We've talked about a great-grandmother who had great fortune, and a great-great-grandfather who had very bad misfortune. So those are some of the good characters. Those are good. And then we've also talked about, you guys have mentioned, let's go up to page, well, the guard. We talked about the guard. And the guard came to pick Stanley up to take him off to camp, and that she's, already kind of caused some embarrassment. So we know that Stanley is easily embarrassed, and that the guard's, note taker. There's probably not too much that the guard's setting up here for us in the story, but it also is a character. The guard is a character, so that is included. You guys have told me that some of you can relate to Stanley, and we talked about why, and that was important. And then also, we are going to talk about how we think that some of these characters are going to change the story's outcome, or make a climax for the story, or be present in the setting. How are these characters going to relate to the setting of our story? And in our class discussion, we decided that Stanley, being the main character, we predicted that he was going to have a good outcome. We predicted that he was going to have a bad outcome because he's going off to camp, which would make the story maybe sad or happy. We predicted that the guard would end up being a bad person. These are all predictions, so not a single one of them are wrong. This is just what you think and how the story is starting to kind of unravel to you. So those are really important. Now I just want you to take a few minutes to finish up those words that you picked out. And I want you to make your prediction, write it down. You can do a happy face by your characters, thumbs up, thumbs down by your characters. You can write out beside it, this character will, and let me know a good thing or a bad thing that you think is going to happen to this character. And then at the end of class, that's going to be your exit ticket. You're going to turn those in to me, and we will wrap it up. All right, now that you guys have all finished your exit tickets, go ahead and put everything together, close your books. I want to make sure that if you need a copy of this, we talk about that, and I will get you a copy. You have your list of characters. I'm going to take that. We've talked about predictions. We've talked about how the characters are going to affect the story, and we're going to continue reading, and as we go along through the next few weeks, we will finish this book, and we're going to see whose prediction actually became right or wrong, and we're going to make some notes and go along with our words as well, and really make sure we understand those words that we are hitting in our story that we might not know or we might need to refresh on. So you guys, I'm super excited that we did our language arts comparison today, and you guys really told me how much made sense to you and gave me some good ideas and made some great predictions, and that really shows me that you are comprehending and working for good preparation for later. So thank you so much for working so hard. All right, guys, have a good day. Don't forget your exit tickets.